Welcome, 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 and thank you for joining us on another episode of today's Electrical Estimating. I'm your co host, Chris Trommer, and as always, I'm joined by my other co host, Sal Huerta.
Hello, everyone.
So, Sal, the conversation for today is going to be a follow up on what we were discussing towards the end of our August recap episode that went out last week, and that is AI. During that conversation, we had our own opinions, our own thoughts, our own experiences with it. But luckily, during this episode, Paul from McCormick is going to be joining us and providing some insight on his side of how they see AI integrating with the estimating software moving forward, which I think is going to be very powerful to hear what they're thinking. But what are your thoughts? What do you see since you've been around, and I hate to say this forever, um, working with estimating software companies, obviously with NetPricer and the pricing services and beyond, where do you sort of see this fitting in? Where could it be a good fit? What's your thoughts? Let's hear it.
At every stage, regardless of whatever it is, there's always technology that changes things. And what we see from each of these, technological changes, we talked last time about cell phones and larger TVs and so forth. There's an adaptation process. You always hear the older guys say, "No, I'm doing it my old way," and then the younger guys saying, "Sure, let's do this." And that's what AI is going to do. Is that it's going to obviously change some things within the industry that we're in, but the adoption part of it is what's going to take a while. Because as of right now, there's still a lot of guys who just aren't ready to make a change into certain things. And to be very honest, younger people are much more have the ability of adapting quickly, more so than someone who's more seasoned, so to speak. So when those younger people start seeing AI and not just being for counting and measuring things, but to really change things, they're the ones that are going to push AI in a whole different direction that we might think of it today. That's just going to make the whole construction part of it much, much better.
I mean, looking at what I'm receiving in my email for new software that's coming out that is AI incorporated, or articles that I'm reading about companies that are launching AI incorporated programs and software, it looks like it's at the starting block. It's basic functions as we've talked about in the past, and as Paul will speak about in a little bit. It's those basic things, the tedious remedial tasks that people are doing on a day-to-day basis. It's assisting with that. I'm starting to see other programs though that are coming out that say, well, if you are going to be doing this type of project, our program can build, a package of what products you're going to need. If you're a distributor on your site for your visitors and bundle it all together for them just by learning what the product is. I think that's going to be interesting. I think as time progresses, we're going to see how AI evolves with the industry and where it can fit in. But I am looking forward to it. I think as long as we can harness that machine learning aspect, like I do with Grammarly, I have that on my computer. As I've used Grammarly over the last year, it's learned my writing style. It learns as my writing style changes, how I prefer to have a tone set or how I write things. And then as I'm writing things, it'll come up and tell me, oh, maybe, this will be a better match for your tone. That's great. How is that machine learning going to start working within the estimating software where it sees how your tendency is to use the same products on certain jobs, or the same labor calculations, or the same ordering patterns from distributors, or how it can take your bill of materials and then break it out to say three different distributors based on what your budget is and what your terms are with those distributors without you having to do any of those manual calculations. I mean, it'll be interesting to see where this goes. And as we talked about last week, taking time to understand each of these programs and just not jumping in 100% is going to be key, I think, moving forwards.
Absolutely. There's two good questions in there that we just mentioned. Number one is tasks. AI, and that's what it's going to do immediately. It's going to take the day-to-day tasks, or whatever the tasks are, and make it much more efficient. So that's the number one thing that we'll see an AI contribute to the construction industry right away. The long-term part of that you talked about, which was the learning part of it, that's what's going to be much more beneficial in the future. Because as you mentioned, if someone's good at building hospitals, well, they're going to, the AI portion of the software is going to learn this and know, well, it's not going to just randomly grab anything. It's going to know, it's going to pinpoint information, products, all that kind of stuff based upon what a hospital does. So it'll be able to, like you said, understand it, learn it, and then fine tune it more and more as they do each and every one of these. And the same for this person who does football fields to the guy that does used car parking lot lighting. AI will streamline it more and more and make it much more efficient for them as it learns how they run their business.
But let's be clear, AI will not be taking any kind of positions that we see, at least in the near or far future, as Paul and us will discuss when it comes to estimators and their role. Because no matter how smart this gets, it's still a program, it's still a computer. It's lacking a lot that humans bring to this, that human element to this whole equation.
Exactly correct. What happens is people tend to think that everything's point and click, press a button, and it does it for you. It doesn't work that way. If you don't feed in, and two things, if you don't feed in the information for one, it doesn't know what to learn. And then the second part of that, there's always going to be scenarios where you're going to change things. Hey, it says it's going through here, but it doesn't really see there's an actual wall behind there. Well, then a human person will be able to catch all these different things and then make the adjustments on the fly. Whereas most computers or programs aren't going to be able to know all that nuance that's a part of it. So that's where you're absolutely correct. A human part is always going to be a part of this whole process because they're the ones that are going to make the final decisions for things.
Yeah, it's the same with ChatGTP. You go in there with some thoughts and some ideas and say you're doing a marketing email. And you're like, hey, put these together in a marketing email. You give it its prompts, its parameters. But when it comes back with a lot of the same tendency and language. I don't think it's learned to an extent yet where you can, and I see this when I go on the social media posts from companies on LinkedIn or Facebook, the language is the same. So you can actually see when you're reading it, oh, that's AI right from the beginning. So I think there's always going to be that part because I need to stop, review it, change words, change tone. Sometimes it doesn't fully understand what I'm asking it to reference and to provide. So I think there's always going to be that human element that has to be involved that can use this resource as a way to assist them in their day to day. But in the end, that guy is going to always have to be behind the desk, dotting the I's, crossing the T's.
I mean, think of a simple technology like, or not simple, but a technology like automobiles. I mean, you take the very first one, didn't have the power, the strength, everything was manual. You go back to cars in the 50s, bigger engines, faster, but still had all these downsides to them to where a car today is so much more efficient, faster, all that kind of stuff. But the one common denominator between all of that technology was that somebody had to be behind the wheel. And that's exactly going to be here.
And with that, we'll end our portion of this conversation because that's a great point there, Sal. So as always, great talking with you. Let these people get into the conversation we're having with Paul, and I'll meet up with you next week.
Bye, buddy.
And it looks like you guys are investing in technology and how things can be more automated and how the computer can be assisting people. Is this something that you guys are going to keep investing in moving forwards? It's something that you see with what AI is bringing to the table. I hate to bring it up. I always have to. It's the new buzz. But AI becoming more involved in these and more connection in the system itself to be able to take off some work from the estimator and do it for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are looking into so many facets here into the future, and AI is definitely one of those. I was going to explain that here in a little while, but yeah, AI is huge. I mean, if you can imagine, instead of now our program looking at a PDF file and trying to find all the receptacles and trying to differentiate, what's a receptacle or what's a switch on a plan, AI can literally, eventually, hopefully here soon, look at an entire plan and determine everything on that entire plan for you in a matter of seconds. Give you basically a grouping or a legend off to the side telling you, hey, contractor, here's what I found on the plan. Here's how many of those I found on the plan. Here's all of the pipe runs that I found on the plan. Here's the measurement. Here's the square foot of this entire thing. We've looked into the AI already, and it is pretty amazing on what this stuff can do. So yeah, we're pushing forward, and we're looking into all of this stuff, and we're going to keep with the times. I can tell you that.
Now, with that, some people might look at it and say, this is amazing. This is great. The future is going to be making things quicker for me, faster, more accurate. But then you get people that might look at it and say, well, if it's doing all this, what am I supposed to be doing? I mean, you obviously get the good and bad. I mean, it would open things up for them to be doing other projects. But if you're an estimator, I mean, that's what you're going to be doing. Anything to sort of by those people that might be on that side that say, well, you're sort of trying to take the job away from me or what I'm doing? How is that going to really assist them in their job?
That's a fair question. I mean, right now, all we're looking at is for AI to count and measure things for you faster. Again, takeoff is only a piece of the entire job. You still need an estimator to verify, do I have the right material? Do I have the right price? What is my labor factoring if the ceiling height goes from 10 feet to 20 feet? Labor goes up then. So right now on a PDF plan, you can't really see all of that. You still have to have an estimator to be able to program that information in. So if we have a program that counts things faster and measures things faster for it, again, it's just taking up that tedious time that you have to go onto a plan and do all this measuring and counting yourself like we did back in the day. Instead of that, let's get that done for you so you can concentrate on the pricing and the labor and the overhead and the profit. And then how can I break up the job better so I can manage it better later on down the road? So, yeah, I mean, I see that there could be a fear there, but I think in the end, once you learn to live with the technology or utilize this technology better, you're going to be a happier person because you can focus on the more important stuff.
Got it. So.
And Paul, since we've been around a long time, you mentioned you talked about the old computers or the 2 floppy disk things earlier. We heard these same comments about when computers started coming into estimating from the guys who are doing everything by hand versus a computer. And they would say, oh, yeah, you're taking my job away with this computer. When that guy, obviously, fast forward till today, you can see there's much more involved and there's much more capabilities of these programs to do much more things for you. And as you mentioned, Paul, you also needed to be able to verify and check these things. The program just can't do it all by itself.
Exactly. Yeah, we fear what we don't understand yet, right?
So estimators at this time shouldn't fear for their jobs, but just look to a brighter future that, they can sort of take some of these remedial or tedious jobs off of their plate and, let them focus on what they're there to do. You said like all these sort of unique specifications or the more important tasks that are there.
Of course. Or just look at it as that technology is making you more accurate. Maybe you're not so worried about the speed, but it is going to make you more accurate. You're not going to be able to make those manual mistakes because a computer can't really make those mistakes that a human can, right?
Gotcha.
It's more of it's a direct line of sight for a computer where it's not really a direct line of sight for a human. So, I mean, there's several ways to look at this technology.
More like you're gaining a digital coworker or assistant at some point instead of the downside. It's like, hey, now you're getting somebody that can do some of these tasks for you. You got a little bit of a coworker there that doesn't talk about their weekend or anything. Just does what they need to do when you need them to do it and moves on.
That is a good way to put it, Chris.
All right.